Hi, welcome to Heather Cooks, where tonight we are going to make a fabulous lemon herb white fish, sort of a Greek style fish. It's very simply roasted in the oven. You could also grill it if you have that option if you want to cook outside. Comes together very quickly, very easily, and it's delicious. It's one of the simplest and yet most tasty ways to prepare a simple white fish. We're going to serve it with brown rice. It's a whole grain, but it's actually one of the safest whole grains for a digestive disorder like IBS. Oatmeal is the other one, just for your information. So we're going to have the lemon white fish with the herbs over brown rice, and we're going to make a little small green salad to go with it. That's going to be safe. The insoluble fiber is going to be okay because you're going to have the high soluble fiber base of the brown rice. So the first thing you want to do is get your oven preheated to 450 degrees. It's a very hot oven. It's going to cook the fish very quickly. You also want to make sure that you're preheating a heavy baking pan like a cookie sheet. That's what you're going to cook the fish on. So I've got that in the oven right now. It's already heating up. And then you want to get your brown rice going. I've already got that heating on the burner back here. It's a half a cup of brown rice to 1 cup of water. It's a small amount of rice. I'm not making a large meal for the show. You could easily double or triple or quadruple that and make as much rice as you like. And all you do for rice, it's very simple. You just rinse off your rice first, then add the water, bring it to a boil uncovered. As soon as it boils, you just cover it, you turn it down to very low, and you let it simmer until it's tender. You do about 15 to 20 minutes a batch. Brown rice takes twice as much water as the ratio to rice. That's actually higher than when you cook something like white rice, and it may take a few minutes longer to cook, so it's just something to keep in mind. So we've got the rice cooking, we've got our oven preheating. Now we're going to prepare the fish. For this recipe, you want to prepare the fish on a rectangle of either parchment paper or aluminum foil. Parchment paper will puff when you cook it, and it looks very pretty. It makes a really lovely presentation if you're having company for dinner and you want to throw together something very quick, very easy that looks a lot more gourmet than it really is in terms of the amount of time it takes. But I don't have parchment paper on hand, so I just use plain old aluminum foil. You can use whatever suits you. Either option will work well. So we've got our fish on the foil. I'm going to set this aside while I prepare the topping. Just tip that back. Now the topping is going to be very fast and very easy. We're just going to combine garlic, little ground rosemary. You can use fresh rosemary if you happen to have that on hand. A little salt and pepper, a little bit of olive oil, and then some thinly sliced fresh lemon. So I'm going to start just 1 clove of garlic for this, since I'm just making a single fillet of fish for the show. Again, you could up this recipe in terms of quantity for however many people you wanted to serve. I usually make it with about 4 fillets of fish. So I'm just going to cut off the end of the garlic, get the paper out of the way. Oops. And then the trick to easily get the paper off the garlic is to whack it with the flat side of a knife pretty hard, like that. It should make the paper just slip right off, which it did. Now I'm just going to mince this up. You want it chopped very fine for this recipe. I always prefer to use fresh chopped garlic. I don't like the kind that you buy bottled and prepared. I think it tastes funny. It tastes weird. If you have any little brown spots, you can just set them aside. It doesn't take that long to kind of mince and mash some fresh garlic. And garlic is actually very tolerable for your digestion if it's combined with a low fat, high soluble fiber base, which it will be in this meal. Garlic has so many health properties overall that it really is something that's such a nutritional powerhouse. It's good to try to work it into your diet if you can. It's actually a cancer fighter. It fights heart disease as well. So that's pretty much it. We can make that a little bit finer, but it's going to be cooked in this recipe. It's not going to be raw, so that's going to make it more tolerable as well. So we've got our garlic. I'm just going to combine this in a little bowl. Okay, and then we're going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of rosemary. I'm just using dried rosemary for this recipe. If you have fresh, you're probably going to want to use about 4 times as much fresh to dried herbs for this. So let's see. Add a 1/4 teaspoon. And if you want, I always like to grind up my rosemary because it's kind of a hard dried herb. It's in the form of sort of needles. You can buy it ground some places, but you could either leave it as the whole needles or you could grind it, which is what I'm going to do in a mortar and pestle. This isn't going to take long at all, but it's going to really release the flavor of the rosemary, and it's going to crush it down so it's not in those kind of sharp needles. That's about it. Really doesn't take long. So there's our dried rosemary. Now we're going to add a dash of salt and pepper. This is just white pepper. If you wanted to add some freshly ground or freshly cracked black pepper, that would be good too. That'd be really delicious actually with this recipe. A little sea salt. And then just 1 teaspoon of olive oil. So it's not much. And that's it. I like to use extra virgin olive oil for this recipe because it's so simple. There really aren't any other ingredients in it other than these few, so you really want them to be of the highest quality so that you can taste the flavor of each ingredient. Now, I'm just going to stir these together. It's not much. It's going to make almost a little bit of a paste. And we're going to put this over our fish. So we just want to kind of spread it over. And it's not going to heavily coat the fish at all. It's going to be a very light coating of the garlic, the herbs, and the olive oil. But you do want to kind of evenly spread it. That should do us. Now, this is the key for what really livens up this recipe and makes it really delicious, very fresh tasting. We're going to take a lemon and we're going to thinly slice it. I like to use a serrated knife for that. We're going to discard the end piece without any flesh in it because that would be a little bit too bitter the way that we're going to use it for this recipe. Now you just want to thinly slice, very, very thinly slice. If you slice it so thin it doesn't make it all the way to the bottom, that's okay. Because you're going to layer these slices over the fish fillet. So it's probably not going to take too many more slices than that. If you're doing more than one fillet, you're going to need several lemons to get through this recipe. So let's see how this did us. Just going to lay them over like that. Makes for a very pretty presentation as well. That should do it. If you have any extras, you can put them on the side, like that. Okay. We've got our lemon. It's already looking kind of pretty. We're just going to seal it up at this point into a nice, neat little package. And then you just want to kind of crimp over the top to seal it. Like that. And if you were making more than one fillet, you would have an individual package for each fillet of fish. So basically one package is one portion or one serving. Now we're going to put this in the oven. We have our baking sheet preheated, 450 degrees, so it's very hot. I'm just going to pop this out. Very, very hot. Put the fish on it. Woo. You can hear it sizzling. That's how hot it is. Because it's just one fillet of fish and it's very thin, that was actually a rock cod fillet. You could use halibut or another kind of cod. It's probably only going to take about 5 minutes. Usually fish takes about 10 minutes per inch of the fish. That was a pretty thin fillet, so you don't want to overcook it. That's the one thing with fish. You're better to undercook it and check and pop it back in the oven. So I think that's definitely going to be done in 5 minutes. Now check our brown rice. That is still steaming away. Brown rice always does take longer than white rice, so just plan ahead for that. While the fish cooks and while the rice cooks, we're going to make a little green salad to go with this. We're going to have a little bowl of mesclun like this. This is basically just a mix of sort of different lettuce leaves. I like this better than using something like plain iceberg lettuce, which I don't think is very flavorful. Raw greens in general tend to be a little bit hard for people who have digestive disorders like IBS. There's a lot of insoluble fiber in here. On its own, this can cause problems. So you don't want to eat something like a green salad at the beginning of your meal. That's the way we traditionally eat it in America, but it's really not the best way to keep your IBS under control, to keep your digestion stable. You want to have a small portion of a green salad or any raw vegetable at the end of a meal, after you've gotten soluble fiber into your system, which we're going to do with the brown rice. Now, if you want to add something so it's not just the plain greens, that's fine. We're going to add some tomato, a little bit of diced cucumber, and then we're going to whisk up a homemade dressing for it. Because the other big problem with a lot of green salads is the dressings. They tend to be very high fat, whether you buy them bottled or at a restaurant, based on oil, based on mayonnaise. A lot of times there's dairy and then there's cheese. They're just a huge trigger for digestive problems. You want to avoid that. And it's really very easy to make a really delicious homemade fat-free salad dressing. You can buy good fat-free versions as well. A lot of times they sneak some other ingredients in there that maybe aren't so wholesome. They can sometimes add a lot of sugar to them to compensate for the lack of fat. Sometimes they just don't taste that great. So we're going to make a really delicious dressing. It comes together very, very quickly, and you'll never really have to rely on a bottled dressing again if you don't want to. So first we're going to chop up our veggies to add to this. I'm just going to dice up a little bit of a fresh tomato. Not too much. I don't want to overwhelm the salad. But it's always nice to add the pretty red color. So we're going to throw that in. Probably about right. Just a little sprinkle of the chopped tomato. Don't want too much. And then we're going to do the same thing with our cucumber. This is actually just a couple of chunks of cucumber that I've already peeled, and I've scooped out the seeds from the inside because that's where a lot of the insoluble fiber is. Now I just want to finely dice them up. Let's see. Cucumber is a really nice addition to a salad. It adds a lot of crunch and juiciness. So I do tend to like to more finely dice my vegetables than is traditional for a green salad. It makes them a lot easier to digest. So you might want to use that as a little trick, since green salads can be a little bit tricky otherwise. Okay. So we've got our cucumber all diced up. We can add that. Now that is probably about as much raw vegetables that you'd want to have if you're dealing with a disorder like IBS. If they were cooked, you could add a lot more. It's a lot more tolerable. It really minimizes the insoluble fiber. But a raw green salad like this, you do have to be careful with your portion size. You want to eat it at the end of the meal, and you definitely want to have that soluble fiber basis. So keep that in mind. Now we're going to make our dressing for this. This is really going to be good. Just take a little mixing bowl. And we're going to start out with a dollop of it's spicy brown mustard. You can use Dijon mustard, any kind of flavored mustard that you really like. It'll all work fine. So I'm just going to take probably about a tablespoon. I'll measure it and see if it actually comes to that. I don't even normally bother to measure when I make a salad dressing. I just sort of do it to taste, and you can do that as well. Whoops. Did I just fly everywhere? Sorry. I should have shook it up first. Stuff tends to separate a little bit. Mustard is a great condiment actually for IBS in general because it's fat-free, unlike something like mayonnaise. And actually mustard, the spice itself, is a digestive aid. So don't be afraid of mustard. It's a great substitute to put on your sandwich. It's a really good basis for salad dressings. It's got a lot of flavor, little or no fat. Ooh. There's our fish. And that. Most annoying timer. Okay, so we're going to check our fish. We definitely don't want that to overcook. very, very hot. It's going to be a little bit tricky to check. Let's see. Move this out of the way so you can see how the fish looks when I check it. Let's see. You really have to be careful when you're working with an oven that is 450 degrees. It is scorching hot. Now you also want to be really careful when you open a package like this because you could get a very bad steam burn. So you want to be cautious. That looks good. A lot of juice has come out. I'm going to check this by taking a fork. I'm just going to, if you can see how that looks, I don't want to spill the juice. I'm going to kind of scrape aside some of the lemon, and I'm going to check it with a fork to see if it just barely flakes. You don't want to flake a lot, that would mean that it's overcooked. Now it is barely flaking. Is it flaking all? Oh, yeah, great. So this is pretty much perfectly done at this point. Oops. I'm going to seal it back up so it stays hot, but I'm going to take it off the plate so it doesn't continue cooking. And we're all done with our oven at this point as well. So we'll move this. And then at this point what you can do is actually put the package on the serving plate. I think in the end we'll probably serve it over the brown rice, but if you had this in parchment paper, it would be very pretty and you'd want to serve it at the table in the parchment paper itself. It would be all puffed up and it looks like a little gift package for dinner. It's really neat. I'm going to check the rice. That is still boiling away. I'm going to turn that up a little because it's kind of at a lower simmer than I want. And now I'm going to make the salad dressing. We added our spicy brown mustard or Dijon mustard, whatever you prefer. I'm probably going to add about half as much honey as I added mustard to start with, and then taste it and see. So just enough honey. I like honey mustard dressings. They're a real favorite of most people, and I think for good reason. They really are delicious and very low fat. You get a lot of bang for your buck with them, a lot of flavor without any side effects. I'm just going to whisk this together. It should emulsify pretty quickly. If you wanted to start with honey mustard already, you could, but I actually like to add a little bit more honey. It doesn't just give a sort of a stronger flavor than a regular honey mustard would, but it gives a better body and I think a texture to the dressing itself. Honey has a really nice kind of mouthfeel to it, which you want in a salad dressing. Since you're going fat-free here, you want something that sort of fools your taste buds into feeling like it's got fat in it, like it's rich and is a good dressing for the greens. So I'm going to taste this and see. Now to me, I think that needs more honey. So I'm going to add about another half a tablespoon. This would put us at an equal ratio of honey to mustard. That's usually about what I do. But you might want to adjust it to your own taste and see if you want something that's a little bit spicier and a little less sweet. You can add more mustard and less honey. It's very flexible. You'll get to know your own taste on this very quickly. And you can see it's still a really nice, thick texture. We're going to thin that out a little bit. That's going to be our next step. There's basically only 3 ingredients in this salad dressing, by the way. It's incredibly fast and simple to make. And they're likely to be household staple ingredients for you as well. Nothing exotic that you have to go out and buy special. Now we're going to thin this with balsamic vinegar. It's a very special kind of vinegar. It's traditionally aged in wood barrels. It's got a very distinctive flavor. You can actually buy extremely precious, rare balsamic vinegar. It comes in little tiny bottles like that. It's extremely expensive. That's not quite the quality that you need for the salad. You can get just regular old balsamic vinegar for this. So I'm going to add, I don't even think I'm going to measure this. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it and add it in a little bit of a stream. What I want to do is just kind of get it to a thinner consistency and then see how it tastes. Probably going to end up adding a lot less balsamic than anything else. See how that's going. Balsamic vinegar is actually a little bit thicker than regular vinegars like apple cider. And I think it gives this dressing a really lovely, rich, deep color too. Okay. Now it's getting to a nice consistency. I just want to taste it. That is really, really good. This is such an incredibly flavorful dressing. It seriously is good enough to just eat with a spoon. I think it's better than just about any other full-fat salad dressing out there. I'm going to thin it just a little bit more so we can actually drizzle it over the greens. And also because the balsamic vinegar adds such a nice flavor. Just like that. This is definitely not a salad dressing that makes you feel deprived. You're not going to be eating this and wishing it was blue cheese, I promise. Okay, that's a really good consistency. I'm betting it's a really good flavor. Ooh, it is. We're almost done. I can hear my rice simmering, so I'm going to check that one more time. Rice is almost done. Brown rice always takes a little bit longer than I remember, but it's worth it. Brown rice, if you're not used to having it, is really delicious. I would really urge you to try it as an alternative to white rice. It is a great, safe staple for digestive disorders like IBS. It's got a really nutty flavor. It's got a really nice texture. I like it a lot. I think that with a lot of recipes, it actually tastes better than white rice. You can also buy it for cheap in bulk at health food stores, so it's a good staple to have on hand for that reason too. Our salad dressing is pretty much done at this point. You could add a dash of salt and a dash of pepper. I'm going to do one last thing that I think is kind of a special touch for a homemade salad dressing, and that is I'm going to grind up by hand some whole peppercorns. So I'm going to bring back my mortar and pestle. I love using this. I think it's a lot of fun to grind up herbs by hand. I wouldn't want to have to do it or do it in large quantities, but it's fun when you're doing just a little bit of something for a special kick. Now I know that I have whole peppercorns somewhere back here. Here we go. Now this is a mix. It's green, black, and pink peppercorns. If you want to just use black, it's what most people have on hand, regular black pepper. It's your standard. That's fine. If you want to get a mix, knock yourself out. If you want to use just the green or the pink, whatever you like. I think it's a pretty mixture to have the different colors, but use your own preference here. That's actually probably way too much pepper for this little bit of salad dressing. So I'm going to scoot some of it back. I'm guessing that's about all it's going to take. Freshly ground peppercorns are pretty powerful stuff, so don't go overboard. And then you just grind them. You can actually hear them crush. Whoop. And they do sometimes fly out, but that's okay. Just put them back in, keep going. And when it's a small quantity like that, it'll take just maybe 10 seconds. And then you're all done, like that. So I'm just going to sprinkle this into our dressing. You can see how that looks, just a little bit. Pepper can be a pretty overwhelming flavor. You don't want it so strong that that's the only note you taste in the salad dressing. So it's probably good. Oh, that is, it's very good. So I'm just going to drizzle this over the salad. That's probably good. You don't really have to worry about too much dressing since it is fat-free. It's not going to be a problem. At this point, I think my rice is done. I'm going to do one final check. Yeah. Looks to me like it's cooked up pretty well. I'm going to stir it there. It's got a little bit of liquid left to absorb. So normally I would put this back on the heat for a few more minutes, but I think that it's also going to be ready to serve and show you how we would plate this dinner. Let's see how it tastes. It's very good. It's nice and tender. It's got a really nutty flavor. Brown rice is really delicious. If you haven't tried it, really do give it a shot. So, I'm going to bring back our fish. put a little scoop of brown rice up here. Remember, this is your soluble fiber basis. This is your foundation to your meal, so don't skimp on the brown rice. I'm going to try to very uncarefully unwrap this fish. And what I want to do is transfer it over to the plate so we don't lose any of the juices, because they'll really help make the rice even more flavorful. Now, the question is whether or not I can do that without dropping it, and I'm not really sure. Probably just going to pour the juice over the rice first of all. And let's see. Try a spatula. Break the foot. Like that. Oops. I knew I would lose a piece of the fish. I knew it. Okay. The smell is incredible, by the way, when you open the package. All the herbs and the fresh lemon. Wow, this is really a mouth-watering recipe. It honestly is. So we've got our fish. Should I leave that to the side? Leave it to the side. Our fish, our brown rice. What you want to do is give a little extra wedge of fresh lemon so people can squeeze it over the fish, because a lot of the juice basically cooks out of these lemons, which you'll want to take these off obviously before you eat the fish. But if you want to season it a little bit more, you can add a fresh lemon wedge or two. And the other thing that's really good, particularly on the brown rice, is a little bit of garlic salt. There's something about lemon juice and garlic salt when you put it on brown rice. It's an incredible combination. I could eat it by the bowlful. And then you can just garnish it with a little fresh herbs if you like. So we have our simple lemon herb white fish. It's kind of a Greek style. Our brown rice. Our mesclun salad with some cucumbers and tomatoes and a honey mustard balsamic vinegar dressing. It's a very low-fat meal, high soluble fiber from the brown rice. It's delicious. The whole thing comes together maybe 20-30 minutes. Brown rice is probably taking the longest of the whole meal. And again, you can grill this outside if you want to, if you didn't want to roast it in your oven. I hope you enjoy this. It's one of my favorite work night meals. I hope you like it as much as I do. The recipes for everything, as always, are at heathercooks.com. Please come back again next week. And if you have any requests, send them in to me and I'll try to honor them. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.